The red dust of Mars swirled outside the research station's windows as Jack Thompson finished his third cup of coffee. Being the commander of Outpost 217 meant long hours of paperwork, even on a good day. This wasn't going to be a good day. "Commander, we've got an unidentified object entering Mars' atmosphere." The young radar operator's voice crackled through the station's comm system. "It's not following any known flight path." Jack set down his coffee mug and straightened his worn station uniform. "Track it. Give me probable crash coordinates if it maintains current trajectory." The object, whatever it was, didn't look like any Earth vessel he knew. Its entry angle was all wrong, and it was moving too fast. Either someone was very skilled or very unlucky. The station's sensors painted a clearer picture with each passing second. Sleek design, unknown alloy composition, and definitely not human-made. Crash zone calculated. Grid 34B. That's only 3 kilometers from the station. "Sir." Jack was already moving. "Get the emergency response team suited up. I'm taking point on this one." He knew it was against protocol. Station commanders were supposed to coordinate from inside during emergencies, but something in his gut told him this was different. The crash looked worse up close. The vessel had carved a quarter-kilometer trench through the Martian soil, leaving a trail of scattered debris and strange, shimming metal. Jack's team approached carefully, their boots crunching on the frozen ground. That's when they saw her. Through a cracked viewport, an unmistakably feminine figure was slumped over what appeared to be flight controls. Her skin had a faint purple tinge that might have been beautiful if it wasn't so wording, and what looked like fine, iridescent scales covered her exposed arms. "Life signs are stable but weird, sir," his medical officer reported. "Scanner humming. Definitely not human baseline." Jack made a quick decision. "We're bringing her in. Full quarantine protocols, but she needs medical attention now." He reached through the broken viewport, careful of the sharp edges. The alien woman's skin was cool to the touch through his gloves. As he carefully unbuckled her harness, he noticed the intricate designs on her flight suit. They looked like rank insignia, but unlike anything in Earth's military databases. The rescue wasn't easy. Mars' gravity, while lighter than Earth's, still made carrying an unconscious person in a pressure suit challenging. By the time they got her to the station's medical bay, Jack's arms were burning. She woke up 3 hours later, violet eyes snapping open with startling intensity. The first thing she did was look around the room and say something in a language that made Jack's universal translator crackle with static before spitting out, "This facility is inadequate for one of my station." Jack, who had been catching up on reports while waiting for her to wake up, raised an eyebrow. "It was adequate enough to save your life, Your Highness." He'd noticed the royal seals on her flight suit while they were treating her injuries. The alien princess sat up straighter, wincing slightly. You know who I am. I know you're important. The rest we can figure out once you're feeling better." Jack noticed her shivering slightly in the medical bay's climate-controlled air. Without thinking, he shrugged off his commander's jacket and offered it to her. "Here, our temperature settings might be a bit cool for your species." The princess's eyes went wide as saucers. Her translator squealed, and then she practically shrieked, "You're making me your wife. Seriously?" Jack blinked in confusion. What now?" "You offered me your outer garment. In my culture, that's... She seemed to be having trouble breathing. "That's a formal claim of intention to mate." Jack looked at his jacket, still held out in his hand, and then back at the increasingly flustered alien princess. He'd handled first contact situations before, but this was definitely the new one. "Well," he said finally, lowering his arm, "this is going to be an interesting report to write." 3 days after the crash, Jack stood at Outpost 217's main airlock, watching a massive alien ship descend from the rusty Martian sky. It made his station look like a child's toy in comparison, all gleaming silver and pulsing lights. "They're here to kill you, you know," Princess Lyra said matter-of-factly, standing beside him in borrowed station clothes. She'd refused to take them off, insisting they were now part of their courtship ritual. Jack rubbed his temples. "Your Highness, for the last time, I'm not trying to marry you." "Then why did you share your food with me yesterday?" She looked genuinely puzzled. "And let me use your personal data pad." "Because you were hungry and bored." The princess gasped. "So you're saying I'm not even worth proper courtship gifts?" Now I'm really offended. Before Jack could dig himself into an even deeper diplomatic hole, the airlock cycled. 6 tall figures in ornate armor stepped through, led by an elderly alien whose scales had faded to a pale lavender. His translator identified him as Most Honorable High Diplomat Trell. The diplomat took one look at Lyra in her station clothes and almost fainted. "The rumors are true," he wheezed. "Our princess has accepted human attire. The bonding is already in progress." Jack raised his hands. "Now hold on." "Commander Thompson has been most attentive," Lyra interrupted, a mischievous glint in her violet eyes. "He even let me sleep in the special guest quarters." "The medical bay," Jack corrected, "because you had a concussion." The diplomat was frantically taking notes on a shimmering tablet. "Providing medical care personally, and special sleeping arrangements. Most traditional, most proper." One of the armored guards leaned forward. "Should we kill him now, or wait for the formal challenge period?" "Nobody is killing anybody," Jack said firmly. He'd learned that using his commander voice sometimes helped with diplomatic situations. "This is all just a big misunderstanding." The diplomat looked horrified. "You wish to reject our princess after initiating courtship. This is worse than death. The shame would echo through generations." Jack glanced at Lyra, expecting her to help clarify things. Instead, she looked genuinely hurt. Over the past 3 days, between explaining basic human customs and trying to keep her from upgrading his station's computers, he'd actually grown to like her company. Despite her royal status, she was curious about everything and had a sharp wit that made even equipment maintenance interesting. "Look," Jack said carefully, "I respect your customs. But on Earth, offering someone a jacket just means they looked cold. Sharing food means you're being polite. And letting someone use your data pad is, well, okay, that one was probably against regulations." The diplomat's scales shifted color slightly. "You mean to say, you performed all the traditional courtship rituals of our people, by accident?" "Apparently." There was a long silence, broken only by the hum of the station's air recyclers. "This is perfect," the diplomat suddenly exclaimed. "Don't you see? The universe itself has orchestrated this meeting, a human who naturally performs our sacred rituals without even knowing them. It's unprecedented." Jack looked at Lyra, who was trying very hard not to smile. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Well," she said, "you did make me eat that horrible brown drink you love so much. I think some diplomatic chaos is fair revenge." "That was coffee. And you asked to try it." The diplomat was already speaking rapidly into a communicator. "Alert the Emperor. The human passes the first trial of innocence. He performs our ways without pretense or calculation. Truly, a worthy match for our princess." Jack watched his simple gesture of lending a jacket spiral into an interstellar incident and wondered if it was too late to request a transfer to that nice, quiet base on Europa. But when he caught Lyra hiding another smile, he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to. "Sir, you need to see this." Jack's communication officer looked like she hadn't slept in days. "We're getting marriage proposals. Hundreds of them. From aliens." Jack stopped in the middle of his morning station inspection. "We're getting what now?" She pulled up a holographic display filled with messages. "After news spread about you and Princess Lyra, every unmarried noble in the Stellar Empire started sending proposals to Earth humans. They think we're all secret masters of their courtship rituals." "That's ridiculous," Jack muttered, then noticed Lyra sitting cross-legged on a nearby console, happily munching on a chocolate bar. "Another courtship gift," she demanded after discovering Earth snacks. The nobles think humans are playing hard to get, she explained between bites. You don't answer their formal messages, don't follow proper protocols, and seem completely uninterested in their power or wealth. In our culture, that means you must be extremely high status. Jack watched her lick chocolate off her fingers, a very unprincess-like gesture she picked up over the past week. And you didn't think to explain this to them? Oh no, it's much too funny watching them panic. She grinned. Did you know one noble tried to court a vending machine because it gave him food without asking for his titles first? The communication officer cleared her throat. That's not all, sir. Earth's governments are in chaos. The United Nations just received a formal document declaring all humans to be honorary members of the imperial nobility due to our natural mastery of the sacred ways. That can't be legal, Jack said. Actually, Lyra chimed in. My father approved it personally. He was very impressed by how you organized the station's recycling system by color. That's just standard protocol. Exactly. She beamed. You created a ritual color-based hierarchy without even being taught. Very impressive. Jack slumped into his command chair. Over the past week, everything he did seemed to accidentally fit some alien noble tradition. Making his own coffee, a sign of self-sufficiency worthy of an emperor, doing equipment maintenance, showing humble devotion to one's duties. Even his habit of working out in the station's small gym had been interpreted as ritual combat practice. There's more, the communication officer said nervously. Some of the Empire's more traditional nobles are upset. They're calling it a cultural invasion. They're demanding you either formally reject the princess, or what? Or fight duels. Lots of duels. With laser swords. Lyra bounced excitedly. Oh, those are fun. I've got 3 myself. Would you like to borrow one? No. Jack stood up and started pacing. This has gone too far. I need to make an official statement. Explain this is all a misunderstanding. The UN specifically ordered you not to, his officer said. Apparently, this is the fastest first contact integration in human history. They don't want you to mess it up. Integration. Jack looked at Lyra suspiciously. What exactly did you tell your people about humans? She tried to look innocent, which was difficult with chocolate on her nose. Only that you're a fascinating species who somehow stumbled upon enlightenment without even trying, and that your strange habits perfectly match our most sacred traditions, and maybe that you're all secretly cosmic beings testing our worthiness for evolution. You told them what? Well, how else could I explain humans? You don't follow any logical protocols. You make up rules as you go along. And somehow everything works out better than if you planned it. She waved her chocolate bar for emphasis. Even this. You invented food that's both bitter and sweet. That's exactly like our philosophy of cosmic balance, except you did it with sugar. Jack opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He was starting to realize that trying to explain human nature to aliens was like trying to explain why water was wet. Some things just were what they were. The communication officer's console beeped again. Sir, the Chinese government just accidentally accepted 3 marriage proposals by sending form rejection letters. Apparently, playing hard to get is a sign of ultimate nobility. Wonderful, Jack sighed. Any other diplomatic disasters I should know about? Lyra raised her hand. My father's coming to visit next week. Jack decided he definitely should have taken that transfer to Europa when he had the chance. The Emperor of the Stellar Empire arrived at Mars Outpost 217 in a ship that made the previous diplomatic vessel look like a toy shuttle. Jack watched through the station's reinforced windows as it cast a shadow large enough to cover 3 kilometers of Martian surface. Dad does like to make an entrance, Lyra said, adjusting her station uniform. She'd insisted on wearing it to show unity with her chosen mate's culture, despite Jack's protests that they weren't actually engaged. Your father, Jack said slowly, the Emperor of 1,000 worlds, is coming here. To my research station. about a misunderstanding over a jacket. Actually, he'd hear about the coffee too. At Jack's confused look, she explained, "You introduced me to a bitter substance that brought enlightenment and awareness. That's sacred in at least 6 different imperial religions." Before Jack could respond to that, the station's systems reported multiple airlocks engaging. The Emperor had arrived with what looked like half his court. The first person through the door wasn't the Emperor, but a small, annoyed-looking alien carrying what appeared to be a datapad made of living crystal. Announcing his Supreme Majesty, Light of the 7 Spiral Arms, Voice of the Cosmic Harmony, Emperor. "That's enough, Scribe," came a deep voice, and the Emperor himself stepped through. He was tall, even for his species, with scales that shimmered in patterns of deep purple and gold. His eyes, the same violet as Lyra's, fixed on Jack with uncomfortable intensity. Jack bowed, having been frantically coached by the station's diplomatic officer. "Your Imperial Majesty, welcome to." "You're shorter than I expected," the Emperor interrupted. Lyra made a choking sound. "Father." "What?" "I'm just saying, from all the stories about his great deeds, I expected someone taller." The Emperor circled Jack like he was studying a curious specimen. "So this is the human who thinks he can marry my daughter?" "Actually, sir, I've been trying to explain." A warning light flashed on the main console, cutting him off. Jack immediately turned to check it, completely forgetting about Imperial protocol. "Station, report," he ordered. "Pressure drop in Agriculture Pod 3. The computer responded. "Seal breach detected." Without hesitation, Jack moved to the control station. "Initiate emergency protocols. Seal all connecting corridors. Get me a visual." He turned to the gathered aliens. "Your Majesty, please stay here where it's safe. Lyra, help them if they need anything." "Where are you going?" the Emperor demanded. "To fix it," Jack said simply, already heading for the door. The next 20 minutes were a blur of activity. A micrometeorite had punctured one of the agricultural pods. It wasn't a major breach, but it threatened the station's food supply. Jack organized the repair teams, helped move vulnerable plants to safe zones, and managed to patch the breach using emergency sealant and some creative use of spare parts. When he returned to the main control room, covered in dirt from the hydroponic gardens, he found the Emperor watching recordings of the incident on the main screen. "Interesting," the Emperor said. "You didn't delegate the crisis to others. You led from the front." "It's my station," Jack replied, too tired to worry about protocol. "My responsibility." The Emperor's scales shifted colors thoughtfully. "You didn't try to impress me. Didn't make a show of your authority. You simply did what needed to be done." "That's his way," Lyra said proudly. "No ceremony, no grand gestures, just competence." The Emperor looked at the dirt-covered human commander, then at his daughter in her matching station uniform, and finally at the efficiently organized chaos of the human outpost. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "there is something to learn from these humans after all." "You want me to do what?" Jack stared at the official document on his screen, wondering if the translator was malfunctioning. "Participate in the traditional imperial courtship rituals," the Emperor's scribe repeated, looking annoyed at having to explain things to a mere human. "To prevent diplomatic incidents, you must properly court the princess according to our customs." 2 weeks had passed since the Emperor's visit, and things had only gotten more complicated. Jack looked at Lyra for help, but she was too busy reading something on her datapad with intense concentration. "What exactly do these rituals involve?" Jack asked carefully. The scribe pulled out his crystal tablet. "First, you must meditate under 3 moons while reciting the Epic of Eternal Devotion." "Mars only has 2 moons, Jack pointed out. "Ah, showing practical problem-solving skills." "Very good." The scribe made a note. "Finding creative solutions to ritual requirements is a sign of worthiness. You passed the first test." Jack blinked. "That wasn't. I didn't mean to." "Next," the scribe continued, You must present the princess with a gift you've crafted with your own hands. Looking around his office, Jack grabbed an empty coffee mug and quickly drew a small heart on it with a marker. Here, the scribe gasped. You create art using the sacred circle shape, decorated with the symbol of life-giving organs, on a vessel meant for your beloved enlightenment drink. The layers of meaning, the profound symbolism. Most nobles spend years planning their ritual gifts. Meanwhile, Lyra had abandoned her datapad and was watching the exchange with growing amusement. "Jack," she said sweetly, "I've been researching human courtship rituals too." "Oh no." "Oh yes." She held up her datapad, showing what appeared to be an Earth romance novel. According to this historical document, humans court each other by sharing food in special locations called restaurants and watching moving pictures together in dark rooms. The scribe frantically took notes. Fascinating. Sharing sustenance while observing educational projections in darkness for better focus. How enlightened. "That's just dinner and a movie," Jack protested. "It's not a ritual. It's just fun." "Fun?" The scribe looked confused. "You mean you court without proper ceremony, without following sacred protocols?" "Well, yeah. People just spend time together, get to know each other, see if they're compatible." There was a moment of shocked silence. Amazing. The scribe's scales were practically glowing. "You've transcended the need for formal structures. You've achieved such spiritual advancement that you can find cosmic harmony through simple togetherness." Lyra jumped up excitedly. "Jack, we must perform this human ritual. Take me to a movie at once." "We don't have a theater on Mars," Jack said. "And even if we did, the princess wishes to experience human courtship customs," the scribe declared formally. "To refuse would be to deny her cultural education." Jack looked at Lyra's hopeful face and sighed. "I can set up a video screen in the recreation room, and the kitchen staff might be able to make something special for dinner." "Perfect." Lyra clapped her hands. "The historical documents say I should wear something called a little black dress, and that you should bring flowers. Where am I supposed to find flowers on Mars?" The scribe made another note. "The human demonstrates proper concern for ritual details. Most impressive." Jack just shook his head. Somehow, his simple attempt to help a crashed alien had turned into an interstellar cultural exchange program, complete with movie dates and diplomatic observers. But when Lyra smiled at him, eyes shining with genuine excitement about experiencing human customs, he couldn't help smiling back. Maybe there were worse things than accidentally starting a revolution in alien-human relations. The Imperial Council chamber appeared on the station's main screen. 50 stern alien faces staring at Jack through the video link. After a month of cultural confusion, movie nights, and increasingly complex diplomatic incidents, things had finally come to a head. "This is unacceptable." One of the council members slammed his hand on his desk. "The imperial bloodline cannot be mixed with a species that puts cheese on their nutrition discs." "They're called pizzas," Lyra corrected from beside Jack. She'd grown quite fond of Earth food during her stay. "And they're delicious." "The princess has been corrupted by human influences," another council member shouted. "She's even starting to use their informal speech patterns." The emperor, sitting in his grand throne, raised a hand for silence. "The council's concerns are noted. Commander Thompson, you have caused quite a stir in our empire." Jack straightened his uniform. "Your Majesty, I never intended." "Intentions are irrelevant. Results matter." A particularly old council member wheezed. "Look what's happening. Young nobles are refusing to recite their ancestral poems. They're asking to hang out instead of performing proper courtship rituals. Some are even trying to make their own coffee." "The horror," Lyra muttered under her breath, making Jack fight back a smile. The Emperor's scales shifted thoughtfully. "Indeed, many changes have come to our empire since we met humanity. The question is, are these changes for the better?" "Of course not." The first council member was practically turning purple. We cannot allow our sacred traditions to be replaced by human practicality. Jack looked at Lyra, saw the worry in her violet eyes, and made a decision. He stepped forward. Your Majesty, honored council, I understand your concerns. From your perspective, I'm just a human station commander who's disrupting thousands of years of tradition. He took a deep breath. So I'll step aside. Jack, no. Lyra grabbed his arm. Let me finish, he said gently. I care about Lyra, Princess Lyra, too much to let my presence damage her position or her people's culture. If the council wishes, I'll transfer to another station. All these diplomatic incidents can be classified as cultural misunderstandings, and everything can go back to normal. There was a long silence in the council chamber. And this, the Emperor said finally, is precisely why you are worthy. What? Jack and several council members said at once. You show wisdom by offering to sacrifice your own happiness for the greater good. You demonstrate respect for our traditions while introducing new perspectives. And most importantly, the Emperor's eyes twinkled. You have made my daughter smile more in 1 month than I've seen in years. Father, Lyra's voice was soft. The real question, the Emperor continued, is not whether you are worthy of our empire, but whether our empire is worthy of change. And elderly council members stood slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in learning from other ways. My own grandchildren have started solving problems more directly since meeting humans. It's quite refreshing, actually. And the coffee is rather good, another council member admitted quietly. The Emperor nodded. Then perhaps it is time for our empire to evolve. Commander Thompson has shown us that there can be profound meaning in simplicity, wisdom in informality, and strength in adaptation. Does this mean? Lyra squeezed Jack's arm hopefully. It means, my daughter, that you have a choice to make. The Emperor leaned forward in his throne. As does our empire. Jack looked at Lyra, who was still holding his arm, and realized he had a choice to make too. Somehow, what had started with a simple jacket had turned into something that could change both their worlds forever. 6 months after the crash that started everything, Mars Outpost 217 was hosting the strangest wedding in human history. The station's main hall had been transformed into a bizarre mix of Earth and Imperial traditions, with both paper streamers and floating light crystals decorating the walls. You're sure about this? Jack asked Lyra for the 100th time. He was wearing his formal station commander uniform, which had been modified with Imperial royal symbols that the scribe insisted were absolutely necessary. About marrying you. Yes. Lyra adjusted her outfit, a wedding dress that somehow combined earth white with Imperial royal purple. About letting my cousin handle the ceremony. Not so much. Her cousin, it turned out, had become obsessed with Earth wedding customs after watching every romantic movie in the station's database. The result was a ceremony that tried to include everything from both cultures. Dearly beloved sentients, the cousin began, we are gathered here in the sight of the cosmic forces, and, is it Microsoft Teams? That's not a deity, Jack whispered. That's the video conferencing software we're using to broadcast this. The Emperor, watching from his throne via video link, tried not to laugh. The past few months had seen massive changes in the Empire. After Lyra had firmly announced she was keeping her practical human and her royal title, a new era of human-alien relations had begun. The cousin continued, mixing up several Earth religions and Imperial traditions. Do you, Commander Jack Thompson of the Mars Research Station and Honorary Duke of the 7th Spiral Arm, take this princess to be your lawfully wedded wife, to share coffee and pizza with, through solar storms and meteor showers? I do, Jack said, smiling at Lyra. She'd insisted on writing their own vows, another Earth custom that had scandalized half the Imperial court. And do you, Princess Lyra, light of the Western galaxies and newly appointed ambassador of human-Imperial relations, take this human to be your husband, promising to respect his strange Earth customs and not to upgrade his station's computers without permission. That was one time. Lyra protested, then grinned. And I do. Then by the power vested in me by the Imperial throne and something called Wikipedia, I pronounce you husband and wife. The station erupted in cheers, humans and aliens celebrating together. On screens around the room, similar celebrations were happening on Earth and across the Empire. Their wedding had become a symbol of the new relationship between their peoples. At the reception, Jack watched as human station crew taught Imperial nobles how to dance the Macarena, while alien diplomats introduced humans to their traditional celebration drinks, after careful testing to ensure they were safe for human consumption. You know, Lyra said, leaning against him, this all started because you gave me your jacket. And because you crashed into my planet, Jack reminded her. Best diplomatic incident ever. She kissed him, causing several Imperial nobles to fan themselves in shock at such a public display of affection. The Emperor's image appeared on a nearby screen. Commander, or should I say, son-in-law, I believe it's time for your first official act as a member of the Imperial family. What's that, Your Majesty? Explaining to the Imperial Council why humans celebrate something called Casual Friday. Jack looked at his alien bride, then at the mixture of humans and aliens dancing together, and finally at his father-in-law's amused expression. Well, he said, that's actually a fascinating Earth tradition that dates back to. As Jack launched into an impromptu explanation that would probably spark another cultural revolution, Lyra squeezed his hand. Sometimes the best protocols were the ones you made up as you went along, just like humans had been doing all along.